Do you guys want the energy to dance all night long?
I do.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Eat some plants.
Hi, I'm NISHA.
I'm Nicole. I'm Dani.
And I'm Hannah. And this is
The Vegan View.
Cheers. Today we have a professional dancer, choreographer, and dance teacher, and vegan athlete. And little known fact, we went to middle school together. Please welcome Chloe Roberts.
Yay! Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and like what kind of things you do in the dance world.
Okay, so I started dancing when I was 3, I think. My grandmother was a dancer, my mother was a dancer. My dad was in the theater, so it was kind of just natural that I would start dancing. And I danced all throughout high school and all throughout college. And I started teaching dance when I was 18. And I've taught kind of all over the US, wherever I've lived. I've taught in Prague a little bit. I do competitive choreography, I do concert choreography, commercial choreography, pretty much any choreography that you want. I can help you out with that.
Awesome.
So yeah, we have a lot of choreography.
I figured, yeah. So yeah, I do that, and I teach kids, mostly high schoolers. I really only teach competitive students, but then I also dance on my own. I am represented by the Movement Talent Agency out of Los Angeles. So yeah, I dance with them. I do a lot of musical theater. I actually just got done doing a run of Grease in Santa Barbara. Cool. So yeah.
Cool.
So how about your vegan story? What kind of brought you about being vegan?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been vegan for about 2 years now, and it's been about 3.5 years since I stopped eating eggs and cheese and milk. So I had really, really bad rosacea when I turned like 21, 22. Yeah, like my whole face was red and it was awful. I'd wake up every day with like weird bumps and I just couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. And I went to a dermatologist in Boston and she told me that sometimes there's no cure for rosacea, but that cutting out dairy is usually like one of the best things that you can do. And so I just made the decision that I was going to try that. I was going to cut out all milk, all cheese, and then also eggs, she said, could have a big effect on that. So I cut all of that out and my skin cleared up really quickly, actually. And I lost like 10 pounds really easily.
Oh, wow.
So that was really exciting, obviously. Yeah. So yeah, that was about, like 3.5 years ago, I think. And then I just kind of started learning more about the sustainability issues behind veganism, and that was something that was really important to me. And then I started watching a lot of vegan YouTubers and learning about how I actually watched Gary Yourofsky's Best Speech You'll Ever Hear.
So good.
Yeah, which
Love
everybody that I know is like,
yeah.
that's what did it for me.
Yeah.
So I watched that, and that really kind of solidified that was the right path for me. And I always tell people like it was the easiest decision that I ever made.
Yeah,
ever.
that's amazing.
So yeah.
That's so cool.
Thanks.
So you were a dancer obviously before you were vegan.
Yes.
Now you're vegan.
Yes.
Did you see any major changes in your energy or like
Yeah.
how you were able to perform?
Definitely, yeah. So I saw a huge change, basically mostly in how my joints felt. I have always kind of struggled with hip issues. I injured my hip when I was 14 and then I never really let it heal properly. And so I'd have a lot of inflammation in my feet in particular. Obviously, as a dancer, you're on your feet all the time. And then, going vegan, just in general, my body just feels so much better every single day. Just the low inflammation, foods that are super anti-inflammatory, I can see just a giant difference in how I feel when I make sure I'm really eating a low inflammatory foods diet. So and then also energy-wise, I just feel a lot better. Again, NISHA and I grew up in Houston. So for me, when I was in high school, I never even brought a water bottle to dance. I would get a Dr. Pepper out of the vending machine at my dance studio in between like jazz and lyrical class.
Well, when we went to school, we weren't allowed to have like water bottles at our desk, but we could go to the vending machine and get like pop. So, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very strange. So that was kind of normal for me, or I thought that was normal. My mom is a nurse, and so she always kind of encouraged a lot of healthy eating, but just kind of what people think of as healthy eating when we were growing up and where we grew up is not what I now consider healthy eating. So that kind of shift really, really changed how I perform as a dancer, because for me, like, fast food was normal, soda was normal. And so then as I slowly started to cut all of those things out, it became a lot easier to maintain my weight, which is something that I kind of always struggled with. But then yes, also my energy was just a lot better.
That's amazing. So you mentioned anti-inflammatory foods. So is there anything in particular that you gravitate towards for that?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
Totally, yeah. So I did a big food allergen test about 3 years ago, around the time that I was struggling with my rosacea stuff. And two of my biggest inflammatory reaction foods were dairy milk and eggs. And then also whey protein was one of the big ones. And I was the kind of person that I would drink protein shakes like every single day. So again, cutting those out made a huge difference in my skin and my weight. But then now I just really try and eat a lot of leafy greens and healthy fats and just drink a ton of water. I just got done, like I said, I just got done doing a run of Greece. But while I was doing that, that's at nighttime. And then during the day, I also teach dance. So
Wow,
for me,
you're just always moving.
yeah, exactly, right? Which is super fun, and I love doing it. So all of May, June, and July, when I was rehearsing for Greece, I was also teaching at the studio where I'm the jazz director in Santa Barbara called Santa Barbara Dance Arts. So for me, a normal day is waking up at like 7:38 and then eating and then going and teaching at the studio from like 9 until 12, and then taking like an hour-long break, and then teaching from like 1 until roughly 3:34, and then taking an hour break, and then going and doing either a 6-hour rehearsal, a 4-hour rehearsal, or a show that night.
Yeah, and if you go on her Instagram, you have to go on her Instagram. Her choreography is like gorgeous. Like I love what you do.
Thank you.
And it's very active and competitive. Like no one can look at her and just be like, oh, she's just dancing around. Like you can tell there's a certain level of athleticism that comes with the kind of dance that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's something I try and gravitate towards is I've always been kind of a muscly person, and I gravitate more towards dance that is very like contemporary and very active. I firmly believe that girls can do all of the same kind of dancing that male dancers can do. Girls can lift girls can lift boys, and vice versa. So I firmly believe that, you know, we need to really push forward this idea that women are strong dancers and kind of get away from that stereotypical idea that
wavy.
Right, exactly. And that's also beautiful. You know, again, any type of dancer's body is beautiful.
I love that you said that because I actually grew up dancing too. I quit in high school to do cheer instead. I experienced that as well. I feel like myself, along with a lot of the girls that I did dance with, experienced some sort of like body image like issue just because of the way that dance is. And I just remember doing point and not feeling like my body was good enough to do point. And I remember my teacher always like telling me to suck in my stomach, and that was something that I had never even thought of at that age. Like I never thought about my stomach sticking out, and from that point on I feel like it was a constant insecurity of mine. And so I love that you point that out, because I feel like a lot of people who grew up in dance might have experienced that as well.
Totally,
Yeah, and I feel like to the average person who's never been through dance or been through the dance world, what's funny is all of us grew up dancing. Not to the degree we do.
like not at your level, but
Dance is dance.
But in the dance world, it is a very, very thin body, and even to anyone else's perspective, we wouldn't be that body type.
Yeah, I have a story. Like I remember the first time I ever like felt overweight. I think I was going through like, you know, kind of a bigger phase, like in middle school, and I was in dance class, and they lined us all up, and they had like bought like something from like Forever 21 or something. So they wanted us to all wear it, and like there was one extra large, and they had us all line up there, and they were like, who's gonna wear the extra large? And they were like, Dani. And I was like, I'm the biggest one here. Like I had never even like looked at myself, like compared myself to everyone else, and I was like, wow, I'm the biggest one in the class. Like I feel really fat right now, you know? And I just like, I feel like they think it's okay, like when
Well, and like that had nothing to do with your dancing ability. It just meant
Like,
like that was the costume
I
that they
feel
were.
like they're like,
No,
it's
that's
like it's like one of those like industries where you're constantly being like looked at for your body, you know, and it even starts at like such a young age.
I think it's like when you're, I mean, I don't know from experience, but I would imagine that it's like, you know, you're envisioning how it's going to look aesthetically, and you're just trying to get people that fit certain parts. Same thing with acting, right? For me, when I was dancing, I was doing ballet, and I was already 5'4" when I was like 11 or 12, which is kind of when my eating disorder started. And I don't think it was because of dance, obviously. There's a lot of other things, but it was one of those things where I was so tall that I just felt massive. And I think sometimes like if you feel big, it makes you feel overweight, you know? And so it made me so self-conscious. So do you think as a teacher there's a pressure to, like, you know that girls feel this way sometimes, so do you feel like you have to present it in a certain kind of way?
Yeah, absolutely. What I try and do is, like when you mentioned being told to suck in your stomach, I try and use words that are much more in tune to the actual muscles that are being used.
Like
So I'll say things like engage your core, pull your belly button towards your spine. And so your teacher, when they were telling you to suck in your stomach, she didn't mean that like your stomach was sticking out because you were fat.
Right.
You just like weren't necessarily engaging your core the right way. But as like a teenager, you're right. Like it makes it feel like you need to do that all the time, or like your stomach is fat when it's not.
Yeah.
It was more about form.
Right,
but
exactly.
She felt
But
like
it just
was
wasn't said the
personal-
right way. Yeah.
Words are so powerful.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had
especially at that age, like you don't
exactly.
know.
And
you're sensitive. You're sensitive, Sally.
absolutely, yeah. And I had a teacher once. I mean, you guys all know what fifth position is. So right, you have like one toe to your ankle or one toe to your heel, and then vice versa. And it has a lot to do with the way that your femurs are rotated in your pelvis and the way that you can use your turnout and your rotation. But it also has a lot to do with how large your thighs are. And so some people, regardless of their ability to rotate their legs because of muscles, just because of the way that their legs are shaped, will not have as small of a fifth position, which is what is usually wanted in the dance world. And I can remember that a teacher said to me once, she was like, well, if you had less muscular thighs, you would have a better fifth position. Because it's hard because I've got, muscly legs. And so it wasn't always like the easiest thing for me. And that was something that also like very much stuck with me and made me very, very aware of the size of my legs for a really long time. And so I try and be very upfront about like this is about being strong and like knowing what your body can do for you, and it's about injury prevention, and it's about being healthy. And so I feel like that is a hopefully a better way for my students to learn. And I really again try and enforce that idea that anybody can be a dancer, and there's not like people say like, oh, I want a dancer's body, and I'm like, well, that doesn't mean anything. And so I do think that the stereotype is changing. Particularly, I think a lot of commercial dance has really done a good job with that. That you see people of all different backgrounds, ethnicities, shapes, and sizes dancing, which is really wonderful. And hopefully that's kind of the way that we're heading. Even a lot of professional ballet companies now are casting principal dancers that have not what you would consider like the stereotypical Balanchine ballet body. So hopefully we are on the way.
So what part does like nutrition play in your endurance, and like what does a typical day of eating look like for you?
Definitely. So that's kind of one of the biggest things that I try and teach my students, and I've had several students decide to go either vegan or vegetarian in the last few years, which has been really great.
That's so exciting.
Because
That's awesome.
it's so fulfilling, and I'm very proud of them. They're awesome. They're like 14 and 15-year-old girls, so it's a big deal for them, you know. But I always try and reinforce the idea that in order to fuel your body as a dancer, you have to have a lot of calories and you have to have a lot of nutrients. And I feel like there is that stereotype that dancers don't eat, but like every dancer I know eats so much food. Like right, exactly. Like everybody eats so much food. So I do think that there are cases of people that struggle with eating disorders, and that absolutely does exist in the dance community. That exists in most communities. But I do think that it is important to remember that most dancers eat a lot of food. So for me, like I was saying, I was doing that run of Greece and then teaching every day. So I'll wake up, I usually have, this is so basic, I'll usually have like a green smoothie for breakfast.
What's in that green smoothie?
Yeah, so I do frozen mango, frozen banana, hemp seeds, water, spinach, kale, and then like a greens powder.
Lots of
it's
carbs,
huge.
protein.
Yeah. Oh no, it's like
Yeah.
700
Yeah,
calories
that's
roughly.
amazing.
Yeah, so it's really, really big. So I'll have that. Sometimes I have like a PB&J smoothie, which is bananas, blueberries, peanut butter, maca powder, coconut milk, and I think that's it.
That sounds
So
really dense.
yeah, right.
Really
So that like really
fueling.
fuels me for most of the morning. Then for lunch, most of the time I have avocado toast. Again, like that's so basic and embarrassing.
Yeah, I love
But I have avocado toast that I put cucumber and tomato on. And then for dinner, I usually have like a big veggie grill, or I like tacos a lot, like veggie tacos. Like I eat a
like
lot.
what
Like I'm
normal
hungry.
people eat.
I eat chips and guac like pretty much every day of my life, and I refuse to not do that. So yeah, I eat that. I occasionally eat Lara bars like throughout the day.
Have
if I
you
need
had the
stuff
peanut
like
butter and
that.
jelly Lara
I
bar?
have. It's so good.
What's your favorite Lara bar?
It's so good. Probably the peanut butter and jelly.
It's from their organic line. It's the best.
Yeah, I
haven't
also
tried
really
that
like
one.
the peanut butter cookie. Lara bar.
I like that one,
That
too.
one's super good. So yeah, I'll eat that. I'm also a huge coffee drinker. Like I drink a lot of coffee every day. So I drink the same creamer that you drink, the Califio one.
So good.
Yeah, I like the vanilla and the hazelnut one. So
Yeah, those are the
I
best
have
ones.
coffee.
Those are the best.
Also, usually I make coffee in my smoothie before I go to work, and that's what I have at work. So, yeah.
So pretty normal, but like substantial amounts.
Yeah,
of food.
right. Yeah, I make sure like I just eat when I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And like I never necessarily had an eating disorder, but I have definitely struggled with disordered eating, and I have talked to people about it, and it goes, you know, kind of around like in waves. It goes and it comes and goes, and there are days when I feel totally fine and 100% normal, and then there's days where I feel awful, you know, and I just kind of am like, well, this is it, and like this is life, and it, you know, kind of
so
it
human.
always stays with you. So that's why I always say going vegan was kind of the easiest thing that ever happened to me, or the easiest decision that I ever made, because I was actually watching an Ellen Fisher video, and she talked about that you can eat as much food as you want. And like, since I love to eat, I was like, what? Like, sign me up. I can eat as much food as I want.
You've said
Like,
that so many times, and
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
the same dancing background.
Yeah, well, I feel
Very
like you said it too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something
We all
that's
like
good.
eating a lot
I mean,
of
I feel
food.
like, you know, growing up as a female, like we're all around the same age, so
Yeah.
I feel like we all kind of grew up where we've seen a lot of fad diets
And
come
we
and
saw,
go,
like, the
and
same
all of our
things
friends
happening.
have
Yeah.
like tried this diet and that diet, and I feel like we've all tried those diets
Yep.
ourselves and just felt frustrated and felt hungry. So
Absolutely.
to like find out about this lifestyle where you can eat whatever you want as much as you want and like
Yeah.
be a healthy person and not have to think about it.
It's
Like,
so easy. You just like eat whole plant
Yeah.
food.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
And that's what I
counting
try and
calories.
explain to my students.
Yeah.
Is they are so confused. They're like, well, what do you eat? And I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever I want. Like
Yeah.
anything that I want, there is a vegan version of
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I think that the idea that I could eat as much as I wanted and eat until I was full, that was very intriguing to me, and that was mentally for me really helpful, because I was constantly, you know, I tried low carb, I tried a keto diet, I did the whole 30 paleo thing. Like I've literally tried everything you can possibly do to try and lose weight or maintain weight, and it just like never worked, and I was always super frustrated with it, and always feeling like this was a waste of my time, and why is it so hard? Like why can't I just like
you feel down on yourself.
Right, exactly. And I'm like, I'm such an active person, and I eat well, so like why do I have any excess weight on my body? And I think it's been really hard for me to kind of just come to terms with like, this is what my body looks like, and I'm healthy, and I should just be fine with that.
Yeah.
You know, or do the best that I can do to be fine with that. And veganism is literally the only thing that's ever made me feel better about it, and better, and have a better relationship with food. And I never thought that I would ever say that. Like,
Yeah.
like I said, grew up in Texas. My favorite food was brisket for my
too.
entire life.
That was my favorite
Like
food.
brisket and pulled pork sandwiches. Like that was all
Yeah.
I would ever want to eat. And so for me to say like I live a perfectly fulfilled life as a vegan is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I feel like going vegan like changed my relationship with food.
Exactly.
Like I all of a sudden like realized that the decisions you make on your plate like are so much more than whether or not you're gonna be skinny or fat.
Absolutely.
You're like, this is for my health. This is like
Exactly.
saving someone's life
Yep.
by not eating that.
Totally.
Like you just like feel so much more fulfilled
Absolutely.
eating plant foods. So then
Yeah.
you're like, who cares if I don't look 5 pounds lighter, because like what I'm
You're
eating
healthy.
Yeah.
is so much better for
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah.
There's such
Absolutely.
a crazy sense of happiness that comes from just every single thing you eat decreases suffering in the world
Exactly.
a lot more than the average person
Yeah.
does, and it just feels so good to just have come from like a background where you're eating like brisket and pulled pork like I did, and to completely switch and start thinking about something other than yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to be said too for, it can sound very superficial, and I feel like a lot of people have this idea that the vegan is like the avocado toast LA girl, you know, who like looks amazing in the bikini and stuff, and like that's fine, and that is one type of vegan, and that is totally worth it, and you know, an amazing example of what veganism can do for you.
Right.
But also like a huge part of it for me is the fact that animals are not suffering.
Yeah.
And you know, people always say like, well, I love animals, and it's like, okay, well, do you eat them? Like, then you can't love animals. And I know that that's kind of like the aggressive vegan thing, but it's so true. And I am such an animal lover. I grew up around horses and dogs and cats, and they're so important to me. And so then once I watched a lot of the factory farm things and the Gary Yourofsky episode on YouTube, it was like, what have I been doing? And I know you guys talk about like the blinders that come off, and it's so true. And so it is for me, it's not just health and helping my career as a dancer, but also it does, you're right, it just kind of makes you feel like a weight has been lifted off of you that you didn't really even know was there for a long
And
time.
once you realize how easy it is to not eat animals, it's so weird too how like some other people who do love animals so much are like crazy animal lovers, like are still eating them, and you're like, it's so easy not to.
There's so many other options.
Absolutely.
This is so funny because as we're talking, so much of what's being said is stuff that I've said to here and to my friends. I wrote about something almost like verbatim what you're saying about your relationship with food in my ebook, and I'm just like, what other diet is there that like not just makes you feel comfortable eating, but like has that effect on so many different people? I mean, we're very similar in a lot of ways, but we're also very different. We grew up differently, and I feel like one of the main side effects I hear from vegans is that they just have this enhanced feeling of peace because it's not contributing to cruelty. And it is, I mean, a lot of times it starts with health, but it becomes this whole other thing that just transforms, and it starts on your plate. Definitely. It's just so cool to hear that echoed. I mean, we just met today, and I'm like, oh, I feel the exact same way. I feel like you read my diary. Like, how do you know this? It's amazing.
It is, and I feel like it's kind of something that just connects like vegans across the world, you know? Like people that I follow on Instagram and people that I follow on YouTube, I'm like, oh, like I feel like you're my friend because we have such amazing and similar core values about stuff like that. So and then the sustainability is just like a plus. You know,
everything's a bonus.
That's so cool.
So I've had a couple girls actually write to me and ask me for advice on being a dancer and this pressure to lose weight or just maintain that athleticism with dance. Do you have any advice for those girls or boys going through that right now?
Definitely. So for me, the biggest thing that I always tell my students is that the best thing you can do in order to be a professional dancer is to take as many classes as you possibly can in as many different styles as you possibly can. So like I am not a hip hop dancer, but I love to watch hip hop and I love to take hip hop classes. And so pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, that way you learn different styles, you'd learn different ways that people teach. I think that that's really important, particularly when you start to go to auditions. You have to be able to pick up choreography really quickly, and you have to be able to efficiently make it your own. And so by taking a lot of class, you learn how to pick up other people's choreography and then make it look best on your movement style and your body. So I think taking a lot of class is really important, but then also taking care of your body is really important. And I know that it's really easy to push and to take class every single day, and then to also take yoga and to also lift weights and to do this and everything that you can possibly do to try and make your body as strong as it can be. But it's also really important to rest, and rest days are necessary. So I think that that's really, really important.
That's
and food is a big
too.
part of that too.
Yeah,
Definitely. And also not to get caught up with the Instagram craze. There's this huge trend in the dance industry right now to post videos of hyper flexibility, which is most of the time pretty dangerous for your body. So I think remembering that technique is really important and taking care of yourself is really important, and that just because you don't have 1 million followers on Instagram does not mean that you are not a good dancer, that you are not a good choreographer, or that you don't have any value or worth as a dancer. And that your Instagram following does not reflect your ability by any means.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it does. And sometimes it does. So
I love that.
I
I feel like that applies to all areas of life. Like, as far as like Instagram goes, I feel like we all, like everybody goes through these phases where we're like, oh, like this person has more followers, this person's getting more recognition.
I should look like this.
Yeah.
I should be doing photos like this. My art should be like this.
yeah.
And you're right, it doesn't make you any less talented. Like, focus on you, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Definitely.
There's a book called Slay in Your Lane.
Ooh.
Isn't that cool?
Ooh.
Yeah, I love that.
That's my new
And I think that my agent has said to me before that the best thing that dancers can do when you go to an audition is to be yourself, because ultimately everyone that's judging you wants you to succeed. And so going in there and being really nervous is natural, but try and use that nervous energy to then power you forward and kind of support you as you go and learn this hard choreography and have to, perform in front of all these people. So I think just remembering that to be who you are is important, and to not try and, like you said, be something that you're not.
That's such a good point with casting, because if you think about it from their point of view, they're looking for someone that is gonna like fit this part that they
Totally.
need, and like if you are amazing, that's gonna make their job so much easier. So they're gonna be so excited. So they want you to do well. I love
and
that you said
they
that.
want people that are then gonna go out and do more things and make them more successful and make you more successful. So they're never looking to put you down. They might not want you for this particular thing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you are what they're looking for, then that's a good thing for them, you know. And they are constantly trying to add more to their roster, or like you said, to fill a particular role. So if you can make that easier for them, then great. That's
a great
awesome.
perspective.
So I'm so happy we had you on.
Thank
I
you.
just think everything you say is something that we're trying to put out there in the vegan community, that you being yourself is so much more powerful and unique than trying to be like anyone else. And whether it's in the dance world, whether it's with your just any profession, being a vegan, you are more powerful than being anyone out there. There's only one you. And I love how, like, I'm just so proud of like the woman you've become, because I've known you since you were just a little
What, like
little
8?
person.
8?
Yeah,
I think 8 years
so
old.
long.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool to see how such similar upbringings and lifestyles have come to this like vegan creative, because we're both in like the creative.
I know. I'm like, I feel the same way about
Yeah.
you.
I know,
killing it.
Yeah,
I'm
just
killing it.
everything that we've been texting and everything you've said here is just so much what we're trying to change the vegan space and vegan world with. So it's good to have people like you in it.
Thanks, guys. It was super fun. Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you guys liked Chloe and you want to check her out, definitely check her out. Her dance videos are incredible. We'll link down below her Instagram, and follow us on our individual channels as well. And we'll see you guys next time in a new video. Bye. Bye.